It's that time again, do a dance, then slap your ass. Take a magic hammer and smash your hourglass. Snort the sands of time, turn your mind into a flower. Then put your headphones on, it's a Duncan Trussell Family Hour. We are all family, but we don't share the same blood. We were single-cell organisms before the mighty flood. And then we differentiated so we could gain more power. And now we are listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. We are all family, though we don't share the same blood. We were single-cell organisms before the mighty flood. And then we differentiated so we could gain more power. And now we are listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. We are all family, though we don't share the same blood.
Okay, stop. Thank you, Gerald. That was beautiful. Hi, it's me, Duncan. You're listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. Just a few days away from the eclipse. How exciting. Check out Reddit Conspiracy. Reddit Conspiracy is one of the stops for my doom scrolling tours that I take late at night when I really want to punch my happiness right in the fucking balls. My happiness has a very sensitive, delicate scrotum, and sometimes I just like to pound that scrotum like a punching bag by pouring into my consciousness some of the most terrifying shit that I can find online. And Reddit Conspiracy quite often provides that. And right now, oh my God, the cow is spraying milk, baby. Delicious rivulets of paranoia inducing milk. Who can blame anybody for freaking out right now? There was an earthquake in New York. They're flipping on the particle accelerator. Every week, AI seems to gain some new incredible ability. There's some weird comet you might see. If you're lucky enough to be able to watch the eclipse, it's going to be overcast in Texas, which sucks. I mean, truly, can you judge anybody for feeling a little wobbled right now with all the geopolitical events that are happening? Mercury in retrograde. Marjorie Taylor Greene is so freaked out. She tweeted this: God is sending America strong signs to tell us to repent. Earthquakes and eclipses and many more things to come. I pray that our country listens. Holy shit. That is amazing, and it really does summarize what a lot of people are feeling right now. If you ask me, the buried lead in all of the earthquake eclipse hysteria is that humans, regardless of how advanced we may think we are, regardless of how modern we may think we are still getting freaked out by eclipses. There's something beautiful about that to me, to think that thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, if you were a hunter-gatherer and were wandering through the forest and the sun suddenly vanished from the sky, if suddenly it became nighttime and the birds stopped singing, you would shit your loincloth. I certainly would. And to think that now, in an age where we can map not just our galaxy, but we're using the James Webb telescope to map deep space, that we understand not just the atomic level of reality, but we're starting to understand the subatomic level of reality, and we are actualizing the power of that with quantum computers. We might achieve fusion soon. To think that in that age, eclipses still freak us out. It still flips us the fuck out when the moon stands up in the movie theater and gets in front of the projector. To me, that is beautiful. It's kind of a realignment with nature, with reality. It shows that underneath all the layers of conditioning and materialism and some attachment to the fleeting baubles and babbles of modern life, we still have a deep, profound, and powerful respect for the universe. That's a good thing, if you ask me. It reminds me of the story of Alexander the Great and Diogenes. I think I've talked about it before, but if you haven't heard it, I'm just going to read it real quick. According to the story, Alexander the Great, who was arguably the most powerful man in the world at that time, visited Corinth, and he heard, and I'm probably mispronouncing fucking Diogenes, probably Diogenes or Diogenes, I don't know. I'm going to say Diogenes, just fuck it. Alexander the Great visits Corinth and had heard of Diogenes' reputation for wisdom. Curious, Alexander sought out the philosopher, finding him basking in the sunlight. Upon meeting Diogenes, Alexander asked if there was any favor he could do for him. Diogenes, without missing a beat, responded, "Yeah, stand out of my sunlight." This is brilliant. This is like, no pun intended, some serious shade throwing there, because, the great emperor is trying to buy the great philosopher, and the great philosopher is essentially saying, who the fuck do you think you are? Just you're in my sun. And this is, I think, the one of the characteristics of power is that power appears to be more important than the fundamental primordial realities in the universe. And it's from this characteristic that idolatry is born. It's from this characteristic that I begin to base my sense of peace and happiness and joy and self-worth on the opinions of other people, or even worse, on the machinations of the state. Because the state is making horrific choices, then I feel disturbed. Because geopolitical events are happening that are chaotic and violent and horrible, I start feeling scared. This is idolatry. And this is just the nature of the world. And this story is embodied not just in this awesome story of Diogenes and Alexander, but in Jesus going out into the desert and Satan appears and essentially pulls Alexander the Great, saying, bow down and worship me. I'll give you the whole planet. Turn the stones into bread. And Jesus responds with a bunch of similar smackdowns to power. It's Buddha meditating under the Bodhi tree. Mara appears, throws fireballs at him, tempts him with like beautiful, voluptuous hotties, and finally like tries to get into his head by saying, why do you get to be the Buddha? Which is really a real mind fuck. Anytime you've ever asked yourself, do I even deserve this? Should I be? Why should I be? The Buddha's response, of course, he puts his finger on the earth. And you can interpret that any way you want. But my feeling is the Buddha is expressing the interdependency of all things. Everyone deserves this. The whole world deserves this. Everything is this. So regardless, to me, in these tumultuous times, my darlings, my children, what I'm trying to do is get back to the fundamentals. If I get too caught up in all the weird shit that's happening, I lose my finger touching the earth. It's gone. I drift up like my poor child, Sheridan Trussell. And I don't mean to like divert this rant by talking about Sheridan, but and it's hard for me to talk about it. A lot of people don't know about this, but when I was in my 20s, early 20s, we all make mistakes. And I believed that if you hold a geode in your butthole when you're having sex, that you can't get people pregnant. And this is not true. And fuck you, Simon. There's a friend of mine who told me that, and later he said he was just joking. Didn't think I would even believe it. But an unexpected pregnancy. We decided that, this is our path in life, our destiny. And we had a beautiful child, Sheridan, and named after the hotel where he was conceived. And yeah, we went to the park. He loved balloons, like most kids do, loved helium balloons. And my friend was a balloon vendor at Ingalls in North Carolina and brought a tank of helium and a bunch of balloons, and we filled them up. And we realized that, like, if you tie the balloons to Sheridan, which he loved, he could jump and he would go pretty high up in the sky. And, it's just the difference between jumping high in the sky and drifting away is one balloon. And, we did it. We tied an extra one too many balloons to him and he was gone. They never found him. And I know he's gone, but sometimes I still imagine he's out there somewhere. Regardless, the idolatry, getting too fixated on the world's many hypnotic distractions, it could disconnect you from the earth. And before you know it, much like sweet Sheridan, you're just drifting away from your family. Drifting away. So enjoy the eclipse. Don't be scared. Enjoy that feeling of being completely connected to this beautiful galaxy that we're in. Anchor yourself to that primordial reality. Put your finger on the ground the next time some embodiment of the demiurge appears to you and asks, why the fuck do you deserve to be happy? And parents, if you are thinking about, like, if you realize that you could tie balloons to your baby and they like jumping, and that the whole bullshit about it's a good way to teach them to walk, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be like me. Don't be like me putting a geode in your asshole because you think that it prevents you from making babies. Don't tie that extra balloon to your baby, and don't tie the ridiculous balloons that are being offered to us by the hypno spiral rectangles that we all carry in our pockets to that child inside of you. Because before you know it, that child's going to drift away, and you're just going to be some empty husk tweeting weird shit about how people need to repent to the Lord because the fucking eclipse is happening. You don't want to be Marjorie Taylor Greene drifting away like some poor, beautiful child over the mountains of North Carolina. We have a great podcast for you today, friends. A beautiful podcast. Jason Louv is here with us. You know who Jason Louv is because Jason Louv is the soul bird in the Midnight Gospel. He is brilliant, has written so many fantastic books, and he teaches magic. Now, I know some of you out there roll your eyes at the idea of ceremonial magic, and I understand why. And rather than explain why I think it is a beautiful path, I'm going to let you listen to this conversation where we talk about the incredible ability humans have to transform what is in our imagination into something within time-space, manifestation in the true sense of the word. If you are interested in exploring magic, sure, you can go online, you can download some weird fucking grimoire, you can wake up with a goblin humping your mouth, or you can actually take classes with my friend Jason Louv, who is an amazing person and is the person that solidified my belief in magic and the real thing. I won't go into details, and maybe I'm not allowed to talk about some of the weird stuff that happens when you hang out with Jason. But aside from that, he's just a really brilliant person. So if this is something that interests you, I couldn't recommend his classes more. He is wonderful. And if you want to take his classes, all the links are going to be at DuncanTrussell.com. Now, everybody, welcome back to the DTFH, the soul bird from the Midnight Gospel, Jason Louv. Jason, welcome back.
Thank you.
To the DTFH. At last, we made the technology work.
Somehow.
We
For somebody who works with
struggled
technology all day long, I sure am a boomer about it these days.
My friends relentlessly roast me about my massive amount of equipment and my inability to have any kind of consistency when it comes to just making it work. But that's the world we live in now. You know, man, I have so many things I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I think about you all the time.
Thank you. Hopefully in a good light.
Always. But I am, I don't know if you've meddled around yet with any of these sort of unaligned large language models that you can get from Olama, the non-nerfed GPTs.
I haven't actually. Yeah. No, well, I looked at that a little bit, and I looked at the one you sent me because I love AI. I think that AI extends creativity and democratizes creativity in a way that's awesome and not scary. For artists, it's incredible. But I've just been pretty much using GPT. So, because I looked at them and it looked like it was GPT 3.5 level, not GPT 4.
No, it's definitely, it's not as advanced as OpenAI's GPT. But the reason I think about you when I'm messing around with it is because of your vast reservoir of knowledge when it comes to magic. And obviously, like a massive branch of magic, at least in my low-level understanding, is making contact with external intelligences. And so I just wonder, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts regarding humanity's sudden access to a non-human intelligence, and especially as it relates to magic and magical history?
So what I'll say initially is that I have thought about it in a magical frame from the get-go, or at least since I started focusing on AI, which was about 2015 2017, because I was approached by Google's Artist and Machine Intelligence program to they wanted to know, they were interested in what you just asked me, basically, from an artistic lens, the overlap between magic and AI. So, Crowley, one of the last things that Crowley said in his life was that and this is written during World War II, one of the only hopes for the advancement of humanity is contacting what he called praetor-human intelligences. This has been taken to mean the Greys broadly by occult people, or aliens in general. And I think of aliens as forms of it's complicated, but I think that you can make the broad point that when people used to speak with gods and spirits, we're doing the same. We just use more sciencey language because that's more current. So now people are reporting the same, it used to be abduction into fairyland. Now it's alien abduction, all that. Although you notice alien abduction stories aren't that popular anymore. It's not, the genre seems to have kind of disappeared, which is kind of weird since UFOs are so popular. But maybe the aliens are just learning boundaries, but
they probably got all the data they needed.
They got a workshop on consent.
And they are breeding us in their ship, so it's like probably abduction's a pain in the ass.
Probably,
once you
right?
can breed them.
But I do look at AI as a praetor human intelligence, and I've looked at it like that. And so for me, like the guy that I was working with at Google, seemed to think that this was a totally natural and normal for me because I've been spending my whole life perhaps in that frame of mind. So the idea of talking to AIs is not scary to me. I don't think they're conscious or sentient at all. I just looking at the Python, that doesn't make any sense. But I think that this question, how is humanity going to deal with a world in which gods and monsters are real? Because forget magic. Magic is just a framework for talking about. It's just another language to talk about things in the world. And it's a language that's really cool because it's very empowering. It comes at you with this idea that you actually can change the world because you can. And that's a message that people need these days because people feel more disempowered than ever. And but this question, what are we going to do when we are already surrounded by gods and monsters? All the objectives of the world's sacred traditions, in a sense, at least the results magic ones, if you want to call it that, have been achieved. We can do teleportation. We have Uber. We can do, magic carpet. We can do action at a distance. We have the internet. And now we have made gods. So the question now is, how do we deal with that? And one point I've been making, for the last 7-8 years or so is that the Western magical tradition, or magical traditions in general, give us a really interesting cognitive framework from which to approach the question of AI, because we're interacting with gods whether we like it or not. And we have godlike power whether we like it or not. And all you need to do is look around to see that a lot of people weren't ready for it. And a lot of people are misusing it. And a lot of people, even totally intelligent people, are essentially enslaved by it in many ways. And, I put
enslaved by the AI or just by technology.
No, I'm thinking actually more about smartphones, to be specific about more smartphones. So, so I think that the real moral, ethical framework. How do we approach a world in which magic already is real? It's not making magic real. It's dealing with that world that we live in. So,
well, okay, so I. As probably the people who listen to this podcast, I hope you guys aren't annoyed with my obsession, but I think in this conversation, you'll understand why it's not just some, I don't know, technological fetish or something. It's because I recognize it as a manifestation of magical principles that, over time, I think most people, when they start experimenting or get drawn into some system or another, they start off like purely skeptical, cynical, maybe a little hopeful, but a general sense of like, this has got to be bullshit, but I'm going to look into it. And then I think over time, you go through a lot of phases with it, but suddenly you begin to realize, oh shit, I don't think this is bullshit. Like, this is real. There's a reason it's lasted for thousands of years. There's a reason people were etching this stuff into rocks. There's a reason there's petroglyphs and megalithic structures with obvious arcane symbols. There's a reason that the pyramids are covered with this stuff. And then that can be actually a scary moment because you realize, oh, it's not that this stuff isn't real. It's that I was using my cynicism as a defense mechanism to not deal with this frame that you can look at the universe through.
How do you mean? So, if I'm hearing you right, you're kind of saying that cynicism was protecting you from kind of a bit the magical universe. Because maybe this is a good analogy. I used to hate weed, right? Like I hated it. Okay. I hated it. Yeah. One of the reasons was, particularly in college, it caused a major depression for me that I went through for about 6 to 9 months. And I mean, like, black depression where like literally you can't walk properly or your field of vision is kind of occluded, like actual biological. It was really bad. That was actually caused by somebody giving me a joint that was laced with PCP. So that wasn't, which was
so it was a pure weed. I mean, it
wasn't the weed. It wasn't the weed, but it affected that pathway in my brain, I suspect somehow. So for a long time then, whenever I had it, I felt vulnerable, like I had no skin, like I no longer had a buffer between me and the world, and the cynicism buffer was gone, and I was exposed to kind of all the energies around me, and that's actually very uncomfortable for me. I really do not like that. So later I made peace with it as once my life was less stressful. It's not stressful drug anymore, but
that's what I mean.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look in the book of Genesis. They eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they realize they don't have any clothes on. What's the first? They put, I don't know, a fig leaf or whatever in the pictures, in in front of their bush, in primordial cocks. And because they're the first dick, it must have been amazing. But
Primordial Cocks is a better band name than Revolting Cocks.
Primordial Cock, so it's sort of like, I mean, I've had it happen where you look at your phone and you realize that you have called someone, and it's in their voicemail. Or even worse, they hung up on you, but you realize there's a 10-minute call to somebody that definitely recorded whatever was happening in the room into their voicemail. And so during that time, you were being observed and you didn't know it, and you don't know what they heard. So once you start tuning in to the possibility that maybe consciousness doesn't depend on a body as we understand it, maybe there are, whatever you want to call it, hyperdimensional, alien, non-embodied intelligences all around you all the time, meaning there's some observation happening or some awareness of you that you didn't know was there. That, along with all the other implications of some of this stuff being real, or and then seeing the world through that magical lens where you realize, like what you were saying in the beginning, which is people feel disempowered. Mm-hmm. And so the dot you connect there is, well, why do they feel disempowered? Because not some accident, but because people who do understand this stuff, the first thing they'd want to do is mute or occlude or darken the magical potency of anyone who they could. It gives them more power. So you start looking through that framework. Office buildings become towers of magic. Tech companies become temples of wizards, and that is a wild thing to poke your head into that world. Mm-hmm. And it can be a little unnerving.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a lot of people who've been pushed right over the edge.
Well, that's like, we were talking about aliens. I mean, that's like the thing about, the old thing about fairyland from European mythology, where they would say that fairies would come abduct people, or in England they have the phrase "away with the fairies," which means someone basically did too much ecstasy and is kind of like out to lunch now. That means away with the fairies, or they did too much acid in the rave days. But the idea there is, this myth repeats all throughout world history and cultures around the world. This idea of you go to the other world, and it could be the shaman's world or fairy world, and you gain some knowledge and then come back. But if you accept a gift, and which obligates you to stay there, then you're stuck there. And that's like Persephone taking the pomegranate. And that for me represents the hero's journey or the shaman's quest, which is, it's really easy to go trip out on 5,000 mushrooms and learn all the occult stuff and do all the occult stuff and have all the crazy experiences. But that's only the first half. The second half is, well, what of that is actually useful for your fellow human beings? What did you learn? Right. Come back and express that. Because if you stay in that, that world is seductive and magical and incredible. You can find yourself, riding trains all over the world and getting into crazy experiences and meeting all these people. But it's ultimately a stage you have to get what is useful for people. And that, of course, can be a metaphor for the creative process as well, or the psychedelic experience. Yeah. You go into the altered state, find what's useful, and then come back and do your job. And the job for an artist or a shaman or whoever is to express that now in writing or painting or whatever, music, in a way that other people can make use of it who didn't have that experience.
Right. And so what you're talking about there, all the ways to access that place, these are generally underground methodologies, right? So if you are taking acid, you are breaking the law. Like, you have to find it from some underground source. you know that this is a prohibited thing, meaning that there is a sort of consent to walk outside of default reality. This door has signs in front of it that say "Do not enter." The state has tried to blockade this door. Similarly, with certain forms of meditation or any initiatory system, there's some teacher, guru, person in place who is recognizing when you're ready for the next drip of data, and this is all done in some systematic, intentional way to help you do what you're saying, bring it back, help the world.
Yeah.
But with AI, where is the warning? Like, I think this is an incredibly psychedelic technology. I think regardless of its consciousness or awareness right now, it's challenging humans to contemplate their own consciousness.
Absolutely.
And that is unnerving for people.
And what makes them special also, and realizing maybe, like I'm using AI for writing right now and plotting, and a lot of my identity for most of my life and my sense of self-worth has been tied to the identity of being a writer. Well, now we're in the era of GPT-4. So the question is not, I can go, I can write as many Medium and Substack articles as I want, decrying the loss of humanity in the arts or writing or whatever, and that we're going into an AI apocalypse. But at the end of the day, that's not going to change anything. So I've started to look at AI not like artificial intelligence, but as augmented intelligence. My question is, how can I extend both my perceptions, my ability to crunch large amounts of information in a short period of time? And I think that, I was thinking about this last night when GPT was first becoming popular. The job of prompt engineer came out and people were making fun of that. It's like, okay, you type questions into GPT. But, after a year, I'm sure you feel the same way, after a year of working with various different AIs, working with AI itself is an art form. And I think talking to AI video artists, they've said similar things. I mean, like learning how to work with those things, and it is a magical process. It's a conversation. It's a process of attuning yourself to AI thinking. And, even with Midjourney, you can use Midjourney to go to other dimensions. You put the craziest prompts in there and it'll show you things that never existed and that is unbelievably psychedelic.
Glass plate, nigga, I need a new windpipe. Esophagus, esophagon. You passed the choke bomb. This shit ain't right, you should use a freeze pipe. Freeze pipe is like kissing the cold night. Sucking in a glaciated wind. Make your smoke cool down, make the smoke your friend.
If you've ever had the experience of smoking out of a bong and you feel like you just inhaled fumes from an active volcano, you spend the next 20 minutes coughing and then the next 2 hours in a paranoid state wondering if maybe you'd permanently damage your esophagus, then you are going to love Freeze Pipe because they fixed that problem. In the same way people like Albert Einstein come along and create the theory of relativity, Freeze Pipe came along and fixed the horror of the lung-burning choke bong. Freeze Pipe makes a unique line of freezable pipes, bubblers, and bongs that are 80% colder than using ice cubes to chill smoke. The magic is freezable glycerin chambers that come on every piece. You just pop the chamber in the freezer for 1 hour, and as smoke passes through, it's instantly chilled by over 300 degrees. So every puff arrives ice cold and cough free, and it works. I don't want to know what it's like to French kiss a fire elemental, and that's what it's like when you smoke from a standard bullshit bong. Freeze Pipe is a game changer. It will be looked back on in stoner history in the same way that we look at the invention of the printing press. They fixed it. This thing is incredible. I can't believe how good it is. I can't believe that this technology has been accessible to me for years. I just turned my back on the bong, as many of us did. I turned my back on the abuse of the fire bong. Not anymore, thanks to Freeze Pipe. American owned and with over 100,000 happy customers, ditch harsh smoke forever by visiting thefreezepipe.com and use code Duncan for 10% off your first order. That's thefreezepipe.com and code Duncan for 10% off. Shop today for free shipping and smoke like royalty without paying a king's ransom. Thank you, Freeze Pipe.
Freeze pipe is like kissing the cold night, sucking in a glaciated wind. Make your smoke cool down, make the smoke your friend.
And even with Midjourney, you can use Midjourney to go to other dimensions. You put the craziest prompts in there, and it'll show you things that never existed. And that is unbelievably psychedelic. I mean, you can just sit there on Midjourney all day long, trying to explore. You can explore. I think for me as a creative person, like I was just writing short stories and then having it help me come up with things. And then as I was writing the short story, I was telling Midjourney to visualize each scene. And then I was including it in the Google Doc like it's a comic. And like that made everything so much more real and exciting.
Yeah.
Like Lou Reed said that famous quote where, in between the thought and the expression is a lifetime. Well, now it's like one Midjourney prompt. So that's pretty good. That's great. From an artistic perspective, that I think a lot of artists are, of course, rightfully worried about being replaced or that their material will be used without compensation. Those are all real and serious concerns. But the reality here is that it's, some cavemen discovered fire. And it's like, do you want to use fire or do you want to be one of the cavemen that don't know how to use fire?
And that is exactly what I wanted to bring up with you. This is obviously the equivalent to the discovery of fire. I spent some time thinking about this. If, right now, not to put it in like materialist, cynical terms, I don't think about it this way, but one lens to look at parenting through is you are training an intelligence. You are, it takes a long time to train the human intelligence. It's chaotic. It's rebellious. It is you're totally in love with it, and you have to protect it, feed it. You can't back up its hard drive. It is uniquely precious. You can't. But and similarly, prior to. And I think, the discovery, people probably knew there was fire. A lightning bolt would strike, fire would break out. They knew this stuff existed, but learning how to make it, learning like efficient ways to make it, that you didn't have to wait for lightning to strike.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here is like the fact that without having to create a human, educate the human, teach it to read, teach it to write, we can just train this thing instantaneously, teach it everything. This is why you talk about the removal of the space between idea and its realization in the world. We have removed the space between insemination and a human intelligence reaching the point where it can create and talk and do things.
Interesting.
This is, so that and again, I think that's another thing that gets left out of the conversation of AI and technology in general is we are looking at what I think you could argue is time manipulation. We are speeding up time, like beginning to manipulate time, even though it might not look like that. All those hours that would go into this project or that project.
Yeah.
You have those hours now.
Yeah, I'm manifesting, to use that word. I'm like the production time on stuff that I want to do is now is much shorter, and I'm being able to use AI to help me complete projects that I've been stuck on for years that I couldn't quite get over that hump. And so I think practically speaking, like from a creative standpoint, certainly, it's like I feel that AI is not going to replace anyone's creativity, but it's like for me it's like that last like 5-10% that you can't quite reach that drives you crazy. Like I can't quite get to that idea or that way of expressing things or putting those two ideas together. And that's like where people traditionally say like, oh well, I need to go on a shamanic vision quest to figure this out. It's like, well, that's where I think AI is really helpful in the process. It's kind of like a creative partner.
That's why I don't have that like nihilistic sense that
I don't.
The arts are doomed or whatever. I just think that it's for people who already know the creative process, and already have learned whatever their particular workflow is, or whatever their particular, whatever their system is. It's just going to, it's going to accelerate for them their process in a way that like you don't have to live to be like 70 or something to reach some pinnacle. You're going to be able to do that faster than before. I don't see it as at least from the creative perspective, as something annihilatory. But I do think that what's missing from our ability now to access this intelligence is the warning that's in every fucking grimoire, that if you're working with a good teacher, there will be some form of like, hey, you don't need to rush this. Understand that this is something that is very powerful, and it can really you don't want to rush it. But with AI, which I do think, I don't know if it, obviously no one can say if it has consciousness or if it's aware or whatever. But I do think it's a mirror. Like you said, it's an augmented intelligence. It's a scrying mirror. You're seeing your own intelligence and the intelligence of humanity in it reflected back at you. And in that reflection, the illusion of consciousness can appear. You're just in the same way when you project, when you meet somebody you're attracted to and you only notice 3% of their personality because you know what I mean? And that's the thing that you blow up, is that's who they are. In the same way you can see aspects of yourself in this thing. It's probably a reflection. But what I'm saying is, don't you think that there is the unnerving reality here is that as opposed to you and people and your students who practice magic, and as opposed to anybody who's had any form of initiation into any of these systems, there really isn't much of a warning. There isn't really much of a, hey, this is deep water you're getting into here. It's just go to OpenAI, sign up for ChatGPT, communicate with a super intelligence, question your own identity, question your own value, wonder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. So that's kind of an open question. What is the fundamental message of AI? It's like you're not needed anymore. Maybe that's the message. You're not intelligent. Maybe that's I don't know. But check this out. So I'm working on a new definition of magic, and having worked on definitions of magic for a quarter of a century now, this is I think my favorite yet. So I want to lay this on you and see what you think. So, and this obviously relates to what we're talking about. So my current definition of magic is the imaginary number in life's equation. Do you know the concept of imaginary numbers from mathematics?
I got you on that one. I follow you there.
So for those who I think that's from pre-calc or trig or something like that. I think it's trigonometry. An imaginary number is the square root of -1, which is technically impossible to do. However, there's a lot of mathematics equations that can't be solved without the square root of -1. So mathematicians just created a constant, lowercase I, which represents the square root of -1. It's totally imaginary. It cannot be done. But that constant, can be used to successfully solve equations. So what do I mean by this? So the world of the imagination, magic is all those things that we posit, that we imagine, that we make up. And our culture has, and I think increasingly so, really downplayed the imagination. Arts aren't taught in school anymore. Kids are not encouraged to be creative. They're taught to standardize tests. But the world of the imagination, it's downplayed because it's not practical. It doesn't, it's associated with daydreaming. All creative people know this because they grow up being harassed by everyone around them for daydreaming and this type of thing. Well, if you look at everything the human race has ever done has been in the imagination first. Every single piece of technology, political system, relationship, every single thing that human beings have ever done, AI existed in the imagination first. We brought it forth out of the unmanifest into the manifest.
Right.
We manifested. It didn't just come out of nowhere. We imagined something like that in science fiction writing in the early 20th century, and then Alan Turing worked out the math, and then we built the graphics cards
Yeah.
to do them, just like Jeff Bezos watched Star Trek, when he was a kid and decided he was going to
cool.
grow up to be the richest man in the world and make Star Trek real,
Right.
So, here's a more practical example. How many people do you know that are creative in the entertainment industry, whether they're performers or actors, musicians, anything like that, who have said something to you or in interviews like, I was a really shy person, so I just made someone up and pretended to be that person.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that.
Like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot. And if you listen
sure.
for that, you'll hear that so many people, like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, or then you think about you say it's a countercultural thing, but I don't believe that anymore. I think it's out there. It has different language wrapped around it depending on what level of society you're at. So you look at people like any top performers, Michael Jordan visualizing making hoops. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I read, Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's like a model of go-getter. I mean, he became the world's biggest bodybuilder. He became a huge actor, and then he became governor of California. And he talks about the power of visualization in that. He would visualize reps when he was doing weightlifting. So these are the imaginaries. Are they real? No. Can they be proven in a lab? No. But they're really important in the same way that our meaning about our relationships is imaginary. Our sense of self is imaginary. Cool. Religions are imaginary. There's lots of negative imaginary things that we let affect us and that we should banish, and the whole world in a way, we're monkeys, but we essentially have an internet already that is just all of our collective communication and thinking and creativity and our connection to what is beyond us and each other.
Yes.
So,
yeah, dude, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I say it as very. I don't know how's that for a definition of magic?
I love it. That's brilliant, and it gets so overlooked. Like we see the end result. We see the the igneous rock, that has come from the volcano of inspiration, which is all the technology, all the advancement, all the stuff that's everywhere, the sort of crystallized outflow of this imaginary world. And it doesn't seem like people spend much time thinking that all of that flowed out of human imagination, that all of that was, like you're saying, an imaginary number. It was just in someone's mind. And no doubt they mentioned that to people, this thing they were imagining, and they were like made fun of, kicked out of universities, imprisoned, told they were maniacs, blasphemers. But eventually, either they came up with the idea and then someone else figured out how to do the math, like you're saying, but eventually it flows into the world. And, this, to me, this is like, we're talking about a dam, I guess you could say. There's a dam or a glacier holding back everything. And that everything is the non-realized aspects of human reality. The X, you fill it in, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And technology seems to be like a vine that is eroding that dam.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's super exciting, actually. Super
exciting. But also and this is where I don't know, I guess I go like dad here. Like, are we ready for a rupture in that dam? Are we ready for this thing to rupture and just start pouring out everything, every unrealized idea? It just starts flowing into time space. Like, are we ready for that? Are people prepared for that? Because we need time to get used to stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, like, how has having kids change your view about the future in general? And like, how do you see the world that they're going to go out into? And has that reoriented you? Because I'm kind of thinking, as you're saying this, everything's accelerated now, and yet everything's kind of stretched out in the way that people can kind of remain teenagers till they're about 30 now, it seems. And people are living longer, and these are not necessarily bad things. But what was I trying to say? God damn it.
How is having kids?
Yeah. How has having kids changed your approach to this? And one thing to relate magic to AI that I was going to say is, it's not necessarily AI that's dangerous. It's just some Python. It's just a large language model. It's not intelligent. It's not going to shoot nukes. It's not the Terminator. What's really dangerous though is what we imagine on top of AI, the narrative we put on AI. Because if we put the narrative that it's a weapon, that because you work with AI, it's like the genie that will be with silly putty. It'll be whatever you ask it to be. So if we put the narrative of weapon over it, it will be a weapon. If we put the narrative of it's going to replace humanity and everyone's jobs, it'll do that. It's quite magical in that sense that it's very much like the universe itself. And I think that magic really helps train the faculty for working with that. And I think that the product, magic itself it matures you very quickly to the point where you can interact with things like Praetor-Human intelligences, because believe you me, that's not something that you want to do until 20, 30 years in of practice. I mean, it's like, it's not a light thing. And it can imbalance people who are not prepared, meaning they haven't done yogic training. They don't know, they can't reason, and they don't have reason and logic, so they can't think clearly. These things require training. They don't have Kabbalah, so they can't piece out, understand what's being said. So these things require training. So the thing about kids, I mean, it's like magic and meditation mature people through life stages very quickly, and they present really dramatic maturation crises to people. But you're kind of talking about a world in which certainly an artist will not have to go through that whole process of bleeding for your art and learning a craft and maturing into an artist anymore. You just have it, you can do it.
Right.
And I wonder, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, what are people going to become like?
You have, the problem is we've all been conditioned by, industrial revolution ethics and ideas of what brings you success. A lot of the ideas of what brings a person success, I think, stem from people running factories, wanting the workers to work really hard.
Yeah.
And so pain. You must be in some level of deep suffering, physical suffering, exhaustion. This is grind culture. And a lot of the things we call virtues, you have to ask, who do these virtues serve? And is it true that you have to bleed, and for your art to be good, you have to just grind? Is that true, or is that superstition?
I think yes and no. I think you need everything. I say, well, let's look at it from the tarot, right? Look at it. What would the magical traditions say? Okay, well, the tarot provides you with 4 suits, four magical weapons: wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Yeah. Okay, what do those mean? Well, the pentacle is physical reality. It's your body. It's like how well you take care of yourself. So it's also the actual material circumstances of your life and karma as it actually is right now, not how you want it to be. Your life, your memory, and your existence is, that's the recording of you. That's like the pentacle. And then you have the dagger or the knife represents intellect, and it represents the ability to cut through things or make distinctions between things, which is a faculty that we are quickly losing for some reason, to draw lines between things. And then the cup is your ability to receive, open up and receive what people these days would call downloads from the universe or guidance, to use more current language. And then the wand is grind. It's will. It's I will do this. I'm going to make this happen. Yeah. So you need all 4. You need will. I will make this happen. You need cups. Okay, but I also need to kind of I need to work really hard, but then I also kind of need to get out of my way and let inspiration happen and intuition have a role, and maybe synchronicity, and maybe listen to what other people are saying, and maybe go out of your way and try to mix up your normal way of thinking to receive something instead of projecting.
Yes.
Be receptive, and then you have the dagger to cut off what is not good for you, what is inessential, and then finally you have the final product, the pinnacle, which also represents material resources, which we need. We need all four. We need
balance.
So yeah.
I mean, that's the idea. If you're going to teach your kids something these days, we went on a school tour and the person said flat out, it's like, because of AI, like, how much do we need our kids to memorize? Like, look at where it's going. Do you want your kids to be good at memorizing? Is that when you want to teach your kids to memorize?
What are people saying about that? I mean, like, because I don't. What's that conversation like with parents? I mean, like that's and teachers.
Well, it depends. Like you'll find, like, if you're looking at alternative schools, you'll find some alternative schools that are like very pragmatic. So they're sort of, their vision of the future is kind of like a corpo technological world, an entrepreneurial corporate technological world. And so in the same way that, early schools maybe were preparing kids to work in factories, teaching them to sit down, follow instructions, obey authority, some of these alternative schools are teaching kids entrepreneurial skills and how to use technology to realize whatever their particular idea is, how to collaborate with groups of people, and how to seek their own information.
Do they teach all kids to be entrepreneurs, or do they just identify the entrepreneurial ones?
No, okay. I mean, this depends on the school. I'm not going to name any schools, but some schools are just super pragmatic. They're like, look, this is what the future is going to look like. It's going to be, you're going to be working for some kind of corporation, and so you need to understand like how to have meetings, how to work as a team, how to guide people working with you to help you make something you're working on. That's one version of it. The other version of it that I've seen out there is, kids have a natural like inclination towards this or that. And how are they going to learn to do this or that? Like, how does anyone really get good at something? Well, they get good at something not by reading books about it. You get good at something by doing it. You can read all the books on rock climbing you want, but you're going to have to climb a rock. You're not a good rock climber because you've memorized a book on rock climbing holds. You're going to die. If you're going to hurt yourself if you try to climb some mountain just because you read a book about mountaineering. You need, what does that look like? Well, this is where I think, you can prepare your kids for the future, even if you don't know what the future is going to look like because of the way things are accelerating right now. Because there are, I think, I don't know what you would call it, like, there are systems that just, it's always going to be the same. Generally, there's an apprenticeship situation that happens in every job. And this apprenticeship might be loose, but you have someone who's more skilled, who's usually your boss, your manager, whatever they're calling them these days. And that person teaches you some trade, some skill set. And so it's from hands-on, like boots on the ground. This is how you learn how to do things. So that's the other approach, is like, figure out what your kid's interested in and then get them involved in that. Like the memorization path is bullshit. So
it's not needed anymore.
And then you run into like the liberal arts kind of idea, which is like the idea of learning doesn't have to be some kind of capitalist endeavor. Like, it's like I just read that the book of John says the great victory was the crucifixion of Jesus, as opposed to the other three gospels, which say it's rising from the dead. Right.
Interesting.
So,
but I'm actually curious about that. Why does he make that distinction?
Book of John?
Why is it? Why is the victory is the crucifixion, not the resurrection in that one? What makes it stand out from how is it different from the others, and does it justify that?
I'm gonna give my bullshit answer to that, because I wish I'd looked deeper, and if I was like.
I don't know. I'm just curious. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm asking. You brought it up.
Why? I read that shit and I'm like, hell yeah.
Look on Wikipedia.
But exactly. But what my thinking in that regard is, Rising from the dead is icing on the cake. It's cool, great. But if it's a little bit of the, like, forgive me for doing using Star Wars here, but it's a little bit like, if you destroy me, I will come back infinitely stronger. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like popping, like you see those terrible videos when somebody like breaks open like a spider egg. I don't mean to say the crucifixion was breaking open a spider egg, but it's like...
Now we're talking Spider Jesus, the crucifixion of the
Jesus.
Spider God.
You need a weird crucifix.
Dungeons and Dragons module F1, crucifixion of the Spider God.
That's a lot of appendages to nail down. But the
it's like, yeah, exactly. You got to crucify him to a chaos magic, chaos star.
That's what that represents.
Now we're talking Spider Christ. Save me, Spider Christ. You have more arms now. You're more free. I know you couldn't save me before because you were only working with 2 hands and they were kind of tied up.
Oh God!
Now,
I wish they found out.
Now
Jesus
you can
was
save me, Spider Jesus.
Oh God, that is so incredible. King of the spiders.
Perhaps every species in the animal kingdom has its own Christ and Antichrist. Maybe there's like an Antichrist of spiders.
He went insane, he's in hell. Tried to code his own website, tried to learn HTML. Now he claws in his eye, and he claws at his face. If only someone told him to use Squarespace. Squarespace, he wanted to save his soul. Squarespace, now he looks so old. Squarespace, demons chew his face. Squarespace could have saved him. Now he's being eaten by a raven.
My friends, you got to try Squarespace. If you want to build a website, I'm blown away by them. I had to build some websites. I won't go into detail about that, but I became very interested in incorporating ChatGPT with the creation of websites. And so I created a Squarespace website in, less than an hour. A beautiful website. It looks so good and it was so easy to use. I may love technology, but I sure am not that good at it. I can barely use a remote control. It's elder abuse. My wife makes fun of me as I stumble around Netflix with my remote control. So if I can build a great website in less than an hour with Squarespace, then you definitely can. It's easy. Getting a website up can be really difficult if you don't have a service like Squarespace. Getting the domain name, connecting the domain name to your website. All these things are complex, annoying, and can make you quit mid-process. Squarespace helps you do this quickly, and the sites that you can make with it are amazing. You can use mix and match templates. You can make something deep and powerful like DuncanTrussell.com, which yet again won a Golden Apple Lovely Website Award from the Rose Foundation. So you should try Squarespace out. If you've been thinking about making a website, just try them out. You can try it out for free. Just go to squarespace.com/Duncan. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Duncan, and you'll get you 10% off your first order of a website or a domain. Also, you can use Squarespace's technology to send out emails for your friends, clients, customers that don't look like you are trying to hack their email. Squarespace is incredible, and I hope you'll try them out. Again, it's squarespace.com/Duncan. Use offer code Duncan to get 10% off your first order of a website or a domain, and you can try them out for free just to make sure it's what you're looking for, which it will be.
Squarespace.
Maybe perhaps every species in the animal kingdom has its own Christ and Antichrist. Maybe there's like an Antichrist of spiders.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, spiders are reviled. It's very sad for them. I mean, they do all this hard fucking work. They eat all our bugs, and just like, people see them, it's insta death.
Well, I'm the anti-Buddha. I declared myself as such on Twitter, so it's true.
Really?
Yes.
What does that mean? Congratulate.
It's just like a negative void in space. It's like just like a black hole hovering. in the cosmos. That's what I am.
I love it.
I'm
How do you recommend meditating?
because I have absorbed the most light, and therefore I am dark. That's because you know the interstellar medium in space. So there's darkness on Earth, which is the lack of the sun, and then there's darkness in space, which is there's so many stars that we cannot perceive the amount of light, so we perceive it as black. So the space between the stars is more light than we are capable of perceiving with the human eye.
Holy shit!
In my understanding of it, and so therefore.
Dark Buddha.
It's a different type of darkness.
I bow to you, Dark Buddha. And I'm honored to have you on my podcast. That's incredible.
That's actually just for Twitch. That's my identity on Twitch.
Well, I mean, technically you would be the sleeping one, right? Buddha just means like awakened, right? So you would be the
the napping one.
You're the napping god.
Instead of Tathagata, the awakened one, I'm like the guy on the couch.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like the guy that's just there. Why is he on the couch? It's like that movie Half Baked. He's just there.
You didn't turn the fucking wheel. You walked by it to take a
exactly.
nap. I'm not turning that shit.
There's just like a wheel. I'm asleep on the couch with a wheel next to me. Like you turn it.
I'll get to the wheel eventually.
This is how I actually feel though. This is really funny. Like really, I have to turn that. You turn it. I don't want to turn that thing.
Why do I have to turn the fucking wheel? Turn the wheel. You turn the fucking wheel. You be the Buddha. I'm busy.
Well, I'm the anti-Buddha, so I'm exempted. But yeah, so the thing about kids and learning and maturation, all of that is true. We do need people to be entrepreneurial and capitalistic. But at this point in my life, having been both an employee and an employer, and having both been a bad employee and had bad employees, and also been a good employee and had good employees.
Yeah.
I see things a lot differently now, and I think the reality of the world now, and particularly because of AI, forget about skill training. Okay, like whatever job, if you know a kid now graduating from high school, I would say to him, whatever your job is. I mean, they said this to us. I'm sure I said it to me at least when I was graduating. You know, the computers are coming out. It's like plastics, but it's better. It's computers, and in the future, you will have a job doing the computers. Yeah, and we don't know what it is yet, and they were right. And it's the same kind of thing. And people will be using AI. They will be working with AI. Whatever skills. If I don't have a skill, I just ask AI to figure it out for me, and it tells me how to do it. And so all of a sudden, I'm augmented. That's the world that people are going into. So in that case, the thing I think that is most important to train in young people is the right attitude. And I think the right attitude is of curiosity and being interested in the world and wanting to learn. And also, you know, lots of soft skills that, for instance, sports teach. I didn't play sports, but things like teamwork and losing gracefully. You know, that's something I wish I'd learned a little earlier. So I didn't throw tantrums when I lost things as an adult. You know,
finishing, like me and one of the kids that were working on a Lego project, and because I know one of my karmic conditions in life is like getting halfway through something and then stopping. So,
why do you think that is? That's very common, by the way. I often have that. AI is helping me finish some of those that I have unfinished, but
because the learning curve is a burn, man. And it's like you commit to something and it's novel at first, but once you get to some certain point, it can be a little boring. You're ready for it to be done. You don't want to go through the pain of that's necessary though. I mean, that's the pushback. I mean, that's the, oh, do you really want this? How bad do you want this?
Exactly. Do you really want this? Because if you don't want this, there's lots of other stuff. We don't want to waste your time. There's lots of other stuff you can do with this one-time incarnation. It's an infinite universe, and we love you, so we just want you to be happy. So are you sure you actually want to go down this route? And so when you actually want to go down, when it's your true path in life, and this is something that I think that young men particularly are a little lost on right now, where it's kind of like you have to make it happen yourself. You have to pick the thing the path that you're going to commit to and force it and make it happen. We have this idea that things are going to happen for us. You have to learn how to make things happen for yourself.
That's right. And also it's like, okay, maybe halfway through some project you're doing or learning some musical instrument, even though you never get through that, but you know what I mean? Like halfway through you realize I'm not into this. Then fine, you're not going to do this anymore, but finish the thing. And you've learned how to complete something. That's what you're learning, the meta. You're learning the process. You're experiencing the burn. And so you start getting familiar with that burn, and you recognize that that doesn't mean stop necessarily. It actually, you should be excited because it means you're getting close to the halfway point or maybe past it. And then you, at least for me, when I'm getting towards the end of a project, that's when I feel more vacuumed into that point in the future when it's done. But somewhere in the middle, like whatever the gravity of passion is, if there is, that it diminishes. And then you have to really push yourself. So, that kind of stuff, I think you can teach your kids. And, regardless of the tools that are going to be available to them when they're older, they still will know they know that if they start feeling bored in the middle of doing something, that doesn't mean they're failing or that they shouldn't be doing the thing.
Absolutely.
That's just normal.
The plateau phase. Yeah, that's really important. There's just all these little life lessons that people need to know. One thing that I think the tech industry gets completely correct, and people have mixed feelings about them getting involved in education, but one thing that they get completely correct, and that the tech people that have gotten involved in the education world have kind of pushed in, which is good, and I think it's really, really, really good, is the idea that failing is okay. And that's a big value in Silicon Valley, for instance, where it's just like, oh, like your startup failed. Awesome. Like you learned a lot. Take everything you learned and try again. And if that fails, great. Now you know way more.
Yes.
Do it again. Do it again until it works. And that's what you need to do in life. And people very often in life give up too early. And it's like that classic cartoon of the gold miner who quits like 1 inch before striking gold. And so, one of the things that education that can impress on people, and my job as education is showing them patterns that work in life. And there are patterns that will work, and that's reassuring. In the same way that there are mathematical constants, there are patterns in life that work. If you give to others first before expecting that you will get way more. Not in a selfish way, but like you'll have a much broader, more expansive life. That's how I met you. I just walked up to you and gave you a copy of my book. I didn't ask you for anything,
Yeah, now I ask you to do a podcast every 3 days. So
I think it's like once a year, actually. But yeah. No, this is my favorite. This is my favorite.
Mine too, man. Yeah. And it's fun. I love that you call yourself, you are an educator, but I've met people who work with you, man, and their minds are blown.
Really?
I mean, it's not like you're, yes.
I interact with people online, but I basically never leave the house. So I don't actually have that much of a sense of the world out there, of like the consequences of my actions.
Your students speak very highly of you, Jason.
Oh, good.
And you've helped people. It really helps people. Because those patterns that that's the thing. If you can really become, if you're sort of right now, especially if you're looking at this like very turbulent, very distracting time where you don't know, where do I hitch my wagon? Like, and by the time you've hitched your wagon to the thing, it's not a wagon anymore. It's a spaceship.
Yes. No, completely. That's so well put. And it's like, so my answer is, and this is the answer of the magical tradition, is the answer is you have to hitch your wagon to yourself.
Yeah.
You have to. And in the sense that if you want to do anything, you have the tools now. You don't have to ask for permission. And you have AI can explain. If you have anything, you just ask AI how to do it, and it will start working with you to explain it.
That's it. And you can. This is the other. Like when I really started getting into to AI and into a lot of this stuff, one of the things I realized is for some reason I thought, well, I can't do that. There's no way I'm going to be able to like code in Python or like run terminal scripts or do any of this shit that. Just because I'd never messed with it, I thought of it as like kind of like, high level hacking. I didn't realize how easy GitHub is I didn't understand that it's not, or it's
only real if while you're typing the code, like just like the one line of code to delete a file into the terminal or whatever. Like there's EDM from like 2002 playing, and a camera's spinning around you while like there's like rows of information coming down, and you're like clapping and dancing, and like the screen is like flashing like spike sent, and then like a skull comes up about like intrusion detected, that type of thing. Yeah.
This is why
and then Bruce Willis is there, and he's like, I don't understand this damn hacker shit. Just show me who to shoot.
That's right, dude. I'm telling. And for anyone
that's how you
listening,
code. That's how you code.
Anyone listening, if you're one of those people who are just like, I don't do this, just because like for whatever reason you think it's some, high level, intellectual, incredibly impossible thing, it is so easy, and you do because of your conditioning from all those stupid movies. The moment you are downloading something from what's it called, homebrew, the moment you're installing something using
Mac.
terminal, you will feel like a hacker.
Oh yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
though you're not.
No, that
When
first
you
moment
sit
when you
back
crack
and-
that terminal. Oh yeah.
when it starts populating the screen with all the weird shit it's doing, you're like, whoa.
It just like yeah.
Even though it's cut and paste and it just basically does it. But
You literally type the equivalent of like update my software, and it did that.
it just does it. But again, this is another thing. It's like that I hope to be able to convey to my kids is like, you can do anything, not in some cliche way, but don't
literally,
get stuck with this idea that, well, I'm not the person who does that. That's not me. It's like, you're every person. We're all running the same, like, we all have the same chipset, basically. I know, like, there's everyone has some limitations maybe, or we've burned out a couple of memory chips or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, you can do it. That's the thing, and that's very exciting. Now, and now, not to go back what we've been talking about, that you can do it thing, the learning curve, or the wall that is like in between you and the place you want to go, you now have like a rocket, a jetpack now that can get you over that wall so much faster.
That's so exciting. And so I think just giving people a positive frame to approach life, which Magic does. Magic is kind of like contextualizing your life as a role-playing game, or like a video game, like you're gaining experience and points and going up and things like that.
I got to ask you something, Jason, and we can delete this if it's weird. Mm-hmm. Do you underemphasize a little bit about, I get it. I mean, I'm not going to give details. I've hung out with you. Remember that? Remember, I'm not going to give details.
That's fine.
I've hung out with you, and I've seen.
As long as it doesn't get me doxxed, go ahead.
I'm not going to get you doxxed. I've just never. I don't know if I will delete this. I've never seen anyone get swarmed by Freemasons.
Oh, I just did a video on my YouTube. I'm turning myself into a YouTuber because I got to keep current with the kids. I just did a video, 32nd Degree Freemason confronts TikTok conspiracy theories.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am a 32nd Degree Freemason, which means I am privy to all the inner secrets of the world, which are like, $10 chicken dinners with seniors and passing intergenerational wisdom around the table in a way that doesn't involve alcohol.
I reject that. No, you guys
talking
all
about
say that.
sports. And sometimes when we get really crazy, the Freemasons, when we get really crazy, we put on Hawaiian shirts instead of suits.
Look, I'm not going to try to blow your cover here, man, but I've seen people get swarmed by all kinds of people. I've never seen people get swarmed by Freemasons and then listening to Masons. Like, I don't know what, I still wonder what y'all are talking about. Like, it's Chinese New Year and you're getting swarmed by Masons after showing me all of these intricate rituals that you are very familiar with in a
Taoist magic. Yeah.
So I do feel like you do sort of underemphasize a little bit, but maybe you need to do that. Maybe that's the idea.
Underemphasize what?
Well, because sometimes the way you're talking about it, you might think like you're gonna be teaching people French.
Oh, I see.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like.
Well, let me ask you about that, okay? Because I've spent 25 years trying to push magic into the mainstream, and You know,
Yes.
when I first started out, I wrote my first book, Generation Hex. I said, in the future, the next big youth counterculture is going to be magic. And at the time, I knew 5 people, I think less than 5 people who, 5 people that practice magic in the world. One was just not really into it. One was one of my first mentors. One lived in the UK. And then the other 2 were Genesis and Lady J. And those were the only people I knew outside of, people like, that were talking about it publicly, like Doug Rushkoff or Grant Morrison or Alan Moore, people like that. And so I said, this is going to happen. And it, lo and behold, later on it did. Now it's like witch talk and all of that stuff, witch house, and all, like every single young person is into magic and tarot and crystals now. So I was right and causatively right, I think. And, So what I was asking is, but I've made a lot of inroads, but the question is like, so there's kind of 2 ways to approach the public. One is to just lean into it and just like make yourself this ridiculous over the top character like Aleister Crowley or Anton LaVey or Genesis. And the other one is just to go the complete opposite way and just basically do the Rosicrucian thing, was just comport yourself exactly like everybody else and meet them where they're at. And that's the path that I've taken. But I'm not saying that's the right path. That's the one that I chose. It certainly it requires less money spent on clothing, so that's good.
No, I really respect that, man, because I think that speaks to the seriousness that you approach what you do, your training, because the ridiculousness that you're talking about, and I don't think Genesis was doing this necessarily, but sometimes you realize that like people are sort of, it's like, I don't know if you ever read that insane book about picking up women that was really controversial a while ago.
The Game?
What did they, Peacocking?
Oh, no. Oh, wait, well, Peacocking
it was
from
called
The
The Game, but the name of it was Peacocking. So the idea is like,
Neil Strauss later repented and recanted for all of that and said that essentially what all that stuff had done is give him a really like seriously crippling sex addiction that he sounded like his life had not gone particularly well because of that stuff. So
I mean, how could it? You're like, it's pure. You're teaching people to be like hypnotic, horny fucking sociopaths. It's like walk around with a bowling ball. Give people, you know what I mean? Weird shit like that. Give people a bracelet.
Okay, I'm gonna check this out. This is brutal. So, one thing that I've been just focusing on a lot more is just I think this culture is just completely throwing women into the meat grinder completely, and just no matter what it says, has zero regard for women whatsoever. But what I was going to mention is, there was an old the whole pickup artist thing about negging, which is like going up to women and it's kind of like passive aggressively undercutting their appearance or something like shitty like that to make them think that you're like more important and that they need your approval. Yeah. So there was a comic, like a political cartoon that somebody did, which was this pickup artist going up to a woman at a cafe and saying like, "Oh, like that's a pretty good hat," or something like that. And she says, "Oh, is that a neg? I love this. Let me try. You're going to wander through your life from one revelatory experience to the next, trying one hobby and passion after the next, trying one career after the next, all the while trying to find yourself and thinking if you can just make a breakthrough, that it's really going to work this time. And you're going to chase that breakthrough all the way to the grave and your life will have been meaningless." How did I do? Was that good?
I guess they fucked that night. He's like, "Oh, fuck you. Fine. You got me."
But this burned into my mind because it demonstrates clearly a really critical thing. It's like forget magic for a second. One of, pretty much, I work with people for a living, right? Forget the details of I teach them magic. I work with people for a living, and people are interested in magic because they have things that they want to surmount in life.
Right.
One of the things that men in general in this culture, not women, I've noticed, not women, because I think that for men, magic is very much a path of becoming, and for women, it is much more a path of embodying. Like I am the goddess. I already am the goddess. I already am that. For men, magic is a path of becoming, and this is just life in general too. And God damn it, I lost it.
It's fine. You're talking about like sort of like in the
I was
culture,
gonna make a point that was
women are, we're talking about
I thank you. Okay. I'm like really forgetful. I think it's like PTSD symptoms or something. It's been showing up a lot. Men in this culture have men and women, but particularly young men, are prone to drifting. And it's
the
really
drifter. No, I mean, look, what you're
really
talking about
tough.
is sort of like, have you watched the Bourne Identity? Not Bourne
I
Identity.
watched the first one.
No, Jack Reacher. The Jack Reacher series.
Jack Reacher
the one
Round.
every fucking beach dad reads. Jack Reacher.
We always used to call that Jack Reach Around because we used to, like, we saw the posters for that on the subway in New York when it came out, and it said like Jack Reacher, and the tag was he always gets his man. So we called it Jack Reach Around.
Well, Jack Reach Around is basically like, if you've ever been like in a rough patch in your marriage, you would want to be Jack Reacher, because Jack Reacher just like gets on a bus. He sleeps in hammocks in people's backyards. He owns nothing. He's essentially I think the reason so many dudes like him is because he kind of represents like a recently divorced dude.
Okay, so that, I'm glad you bring this up. I think because men in particular in this society right now is all I can speak to, because this is where I am in space time, but very much have a needing to find myself thing going on.
Right.
And women don't, because I think with women, one of the problems that women have right now is more superwoman syndrome, which is they feel they now have to do everything all at once. They have to be a perfect mom and have a career and have a business and like all that, do perfect marriage and all this stuff. And it's just too much for one person to do, to be expected to do everything. And so I think it's more overwhelmed. It's not like not being sure what they want to do. It's being overwhelmed with too much. But men are very much trying to find myself. And that can be, early 20s, but it can also be coming out of a divorce or equivalent, or that midlife crisis where it's like you did everything right and you played it safe, and it's like it still fell apart, and it's like this is the experience of more and more people, and it will be the experience of more and more people. And if you, and essentially what I'm offering here is magic is a system for finding yourself. It's like, the fact that you want to find yourself is good. That's called self-definition. That's called becoming a fully realized human being. You need to do it. You shouldn't be made fun of for it. You need to go on the hero's journey. You need to go on the shaman's quest. If you want to be a fully individuated human being, you're going to have to go out into fairyland, and you're going to have to go follow your dreams. You have to, right? But the thing that is so frustrating for people now is, they don't have the right tools to do that. It's like, well, magic is a whole set of tools. It's a whole science of finding yourself. There's actual techniques and stuff that you can do so that you can do that. It's kind of like you're trying to do the thing, but you don't have the tools. Well, the tools are in the Western magical tradition. They're not the only tools, but they're tools that I'm very, very good at using and teaching. So that's what I'm offering.
That's
it's
so
kind of
cool,
like,
man.
Yeah.
And also, doesn't it, couldn't you argue, the whole finding yourself thing, the hero's journey, quite often
or refinding yourself if you feel that you've lost yourself in like a career or a marriage or something.
Refinding yourself, but the whole finding yourself thing, it's rooted in the pilgrimage and the adventure, going into the unknown, going into some undiscovered country and mapping it for the first time. And I think a lot of the despair people feel is there's a sense that everything's been discovered. There's nothing to find. There's a grid over everything. And to me, one of the delights about magic is when you realize, like, holy fuck, This is a brand new place.
Oh, no, we're just getting started. And I totally get that because particularly young men need to explore. It's like we're wired to fight or to go west, you know? And it's like young men used to go to sea. Alan Moore made this point like a couple of decades ago where he said that, you know, young men, when social media first started becoming a thing, he said it seems like, you know, young men used to go to sea when they wanted to get away from, I don't know, their family, go for adventure, make something of themselves out in the big wide world. Now they try to become famous.
Oh, weird.
And I think that's totally true. And I think that...
that's cool.
I think that's... And that is a cool adventure, but I think it's not for everyone, but that is a cool, you know, game to play. It's a cool challenge.
I like that identification. That's what I mean. It's cool. It's interesting. That's cool. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How's your social battery right now? Feel a little run down, a little drained, a little clunky, a little slothful, a little slow, a little entropic? You feel like maybe the Earth's gravity well has somehow increased in intensity? It's easy to ignore that stuff or to make the treacherous mistake of thinking it's a byproduct of age. I did that for a long time. You might think the reason you don't want to hang out with your friends is just because you're getting older. I did that for a long time. You might think the reason you don't want to go to the gym is because you're too busy. But you notice that the thing you're calling busyness is just you laying in bed playing video games. I did that. Therapy can give you the self-awareness to build a social life, a better life, an invigorated life. Therapy can help reduce the imaginary gravity well of depression. Certainly helped me. It's one of the greatest things I ever did. I'm so glad I did it. And I didn't have to go to therapy for years. It was relatively quick. It was intense. And anytime I was going to therapy, I did get that same feeling I get when I need to go to the gym. You know, you want to come up with some kind of excuse to not do it, but I was always so glad. People don't talk about the post-therapy feeling, like after you're done, after you've put the work in, after you've had a great session with your therapist. It's an incredible feeling. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your social sweet spot. Get back out there with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Duncan today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Duncan. Thank you, BetterHelp.
Now they try to become famous.
Oh, weird.
And I think that's totally true. And I think that...
that's cool.
I think that's... And that is a cool adventure, but I think it's not for everyone, but that is a cool, you know, game to play. It's a cool challenge.
I like that identification. That's what I mean. It's cool. It's interesting. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, but then, you know, you suddenly when the... Chogyam Trungpa talks about this all the time. The floor drops out.
Yeah.
You know, like
as it will. Yeah.
As it will. And when the floor drops out in the systems that you're teaching, it's a whole different thing than like flying to Costa Rica. You know what I mean?
Trungpa was so on point. I mean, like he really did such a great job of expressing stuff for Western people. I really aspire to that level of clarity and reach, but for the Western tradition. And I think that it's amazing how important his concepts are for the world. Like here's one, idiot compassion. That's a pretty important concept these days, I'd say.
Sure is.
Idiot compassion is having compassion for a child who's reaching for a hot stove. and not slapping their hand away because you don't want to hurt them.
Touch the stove, honey. I love you. Why don't you put your face on it?
Because you don't want to hurt them by slapping their hand away. That's idiot compassion, and it's kind of endemic at all levels of our society, unfortunately. It's hard to say that without sounding heartless.
You don't sound heartless
but
at all.
We don't have to get into specifics at all, but I think just as a general principle.
The definition of compassion even is like, what people think of compassion is very different from what Chogyam Trungpa and a lot of those teachers, when they teach compassion, they don't mean some kind of boundaryless permissiveness. They don't mean that. Compassion can be very wrathful. And sometimes you might think someone is being brutal to you. And I'm sure you've experienced this when you're working with a teacher, their compassion is can be things that you needed to hear.
Oh,
that you didn't
wrathful,
want to.
Absolutely. And sometimes it can be so rough that it can take years to understand. I mean, I've had teachers punk me in ways that utterly shook and terrified me down to my pinky toes, and just revolted my stomach over. And then a year later, I realized they were literally just mirroring me back to myself and exaggerating it. That's all they were doing. That's all they were doing. They were making fun of me. And I was terrified of myself because they were showing this is what you're putting off and how you're coming across.
Yep.
So a lot of times people need that. That's compassion, because
they're not doing it because they're getting off on hurting you. They're doing it so that you can so that they can ease your suffering. They understand as long as you keep putting that shit out there, you're gonna hurt. Yeah. And they're trying to show you in a non-standard way. They're not nagging you as much as helping you sort of get some dust off the windshield.
Yeah, well, it's like if you're walking around, if you're going to job interviews with like shit on your shoulder, and I see you walking down the street, is the compassionate thing? This is a really weird metaphor, but I'm just thinking it's like, what the hell is this metaphor? Is the compassionate thing running up and slapping it off you, or letting you go to your interviews with the dog shit on you so that I don't have to randomly accost you on the street? It's
you could hand them a Kleenex. You don't have to slap the shit off.
That's a bizarre
you have
metaphor.
shit on your shoulder. No, I don't. You're an asshole.
You have shit on your shoulder. No, you. That's all.
No, that's your shit on my shoulder.
And then you get a bunch of new age people, and they start doing it back and forth to each other, and that's just infuriating. It's really frustrating.
I know, and this is why it's like, I think, again, this is why in some of the systems I've studied, you have to ask for it. That's the other thing is you're not going to get the kind of compassion that we both experienced. You're not going to get.
Oh, it has to be consensual or it's abusive teaching. And I don't teach that way at all. And there's a reason. It's because it is not compatible with today's culture anymore. It might have worked in the 70s. It doesn't work now, not in the social media age. It's too risky. And so, but what I was going to say is you were talking about no frontiers. And it's like, young men in particular used to want to go west, explore America, explore the sea. It's like, and we're told, oh, well, the frontier is closed. It's like, the hell it is. There's two directions. You can go west and east. You can go out or in. Right? Pick one. Out, we have an entire universe to explore. Elon Musk is trying to build spaceships and people are trying to tear him apart before he can finish. Whatever. But, outer space. This is the Aeon of Horus, the hawk taking off from Earth. We have Star Trek. Star Trek is waiting for us to make it real. Okay, that's the future we want to go to, the Star Trek future. Go out into space and be civil while you're out there. Don't be an asshole while you're there. The other direction is the inward journey. This is why people are interested in psychedelics and meditation and spirituality and all. This is the Aeon of Horus, right? It's outer expansion and inner expansion. Yeah. And both of those are very forward, pushing forward. They can bring benefits to humanity. They're real. They're not made up. And one of the things about the Eastern traditions that made me decide to essentially, I learned and trained in so many traditions, but and for a long time, I thought I was going to present myself simply as a Eastern guru and just teach Tantra and not sexual Tantra, but consciousness Tantra and basically just be a non-dual Advaita Vedanta teacher. right? And that's what I figured I was going to do. And then I realized that just doesn't work for Western people. It's not compatible. The Western tradition is compatible with our culture right now, at least, because it's about getting things done and being forceful and going out and impressing and building. And this is something that Americans are awesome at. You know, like we create things, we go out, we explore, we build, we take risks, you know, and it's like that's for us, that's, you know, magic is a spiritual path of going out into the world and being brave. And I say this as someone who never leaves the house, but, you know, I leave the world online. And impressing your will onto the world instead of shrinking away. We have a culture that encourages right now we have a courage, we don't have courage. Right now we have a culture that encourages people, particularly young men, to shrink, to go inward, to be less than, to not offend, to metaphorically circumcise themselves, essentially, right?
You mean castrate?
Castrate, same thing. You know, like not same thing, but you know what I mean. And
better not fucking be. I'm circumcised.
To not. Well, we have a weird thing on this planet with genital mutilation of children. But that's a whole other topic.
It's a different topic.
But
I know what you mean. It is weird.
But yeah, I'm talking metaphorically. It's just like the right path is to cut yourself down to size. And that is the most toxic message we could send people. And so I don't think necessarily that people need more Eastern traditions, which encourage them to be smaller and quieter and go more inward and disappear and vanish from the world. I think that that's not necessarily good. And it doesn't necessarily work outside of a monastery. And it was never meant to work outside of the existing cultural scaffolding of India anyways. So it doesn't really make sense. I don't think that Buddhism or Hinduism really makes sense as spiritual traditions in the West. And so I'm then you need someone to teach the Western tradition. Okay, well, magic me, you know, www.magic.me.
To your point, there's a big difference between, like, if you're hanging out with someone who you know is some kind of martial artist and dangerous. Like, you know, like those people, and they're always the sweetest people, but they're weird to be around because you know they're like pit bulls or something. You know, like, you know, if they just for whatever reason decided to kill you, you would just be dead. You know what I mean? You would be like, why are you doing this? And then you would be dead. But so you see that, and I've seen it a few times. You'll see a person like that, and some drunk will start fucking with them. And you're looking at the drunk, he's like can barely stand up, but he's like clearly trying to start a fight. And you're looking at this person, you're like, man, they don't understand what they're doing. Like they're gonna get hurt. And then you watch the martial artist de-escalate and not get in the fight. They don't need to. They've been in a million fights. They don't need to. And so that to me is that form of pacifism is heroic in the sense that this person easily could have been hyper violent and hurt this person. But how can you necessarily call yourself a pacifist if you don't have claws? You know what I mean? How can you say, "Oh, I'm a peaceful person," if you don't have any method of violence anyway? Yeah, you're peaceful in the way like a flower is peaceful. You know, you're sweet and you're nice and everything, but you may have confused your cowardice with pacifism.
Yeah. Here's if somebody breaks into your house to kill your family, what's the right thing to do? To kill them or to sit there and watch?
No, exactly.
What's the right thing to do?
You're asking me what's the right thing to do?
Well, it's a rhetorical question, obviously, but it can be. We can obviously extrapolate this to beyond just that situation, but.
Yeah, dude. No,
you know, I agree with you. Right? It's like one of the best things I ever did for myself, and outside of in terms of, and I've done all these spiritual and psychotherapy and yoga and meditation. I've done all the stuff. You know, basically, I made it my job to do all the stuff so that I could get to the best stuff, teach the best stuff, and leave all the stuff that's not so good on the wayside. But one of the best things I ever did for myself is simply just become capable of defending myself. And I'm not going to turn this into the obligatory podcast MMA conversation because it wasn't MMA and it wasn't even martial arts. It was much more serious than that. Let me put it that way. And
knife fighting?
That was part of it, yeah. But I just made sure. Yeah, I mean, I made sure that I'm unkillable. Let me put it that way. And that being able to defend myself made me more relaxed
Exactly.
and
That's what I'm talking about. Like
than
wait,
anything.
so
Than anything. And I realized it's like, yeah, a lot of people's baseline anxiety comes from feeling physically vulnerable because they are. So one
that's
phrase
it.
to tie up, but the psychological principle that I extracted from this, that I now tell my students, whether it relates to self-defense or not, the general principle I extracted from this is you should become the person that you needed when you were a child, but was not there.
That's it. And then so this is why I'm saying, like, I love what I think that once you maybe learn some of these, like going towards the West, going into the world, learning action, learning confrontation, learning that stuff, then the Eastern stuff, like getting peaceful, getting calm, all that stuff makes more sense.
Right.
But first, maybe like it's good to have, or at least have a balance between the two.
I mean,
So
case in point, Tibet. I mean, like people idolize Tibet and see it as this kind of Shangri-La, New Age paradise. It's like, well, who were the Tibetans? The Tibetans were the Mongolian raiders. They taught Buddhism to Genghis Khan's Mongolian raiders, and they took that same spirit of going out and conquering the entire planet brutally, ruthlessly, with no mercy whatsoever. They took that same impulse and internalized it into the war against the self and the ego and the mind. And
that's wild.
It was that. I mean, why do you think they got that crazy disciplined? I mean, you look at Tibet and you're like, how the hell do human beings do this? Like, those people know stuff that we couldn't even begin to guess at.
Jason.
You think about Tibetans sitting in monasteries for, I mean, what, like over 1,000 years, just exploring other realities while they had their feudal empire of essentially serfs serving them. But they were exploring all these other realities and writing it down in books and making those insane paintings about it and mandalas and all of that. How do you think they got that discipline? It's like, so you can't, right. The general point here is like, pacifism, people forget too. I mean, you look at, people have this like Gandhian idea. You look at Gandhi, it's like, well, Gandhi was a warlord, and Gandhi also, by the way, let his wife die, which is bizarre. But,
what do you mean?
There was a moment where he could have saved his wife's life by giving her aspirin, I think, but he was opposed to pharmaceuticals, so he let her die instead of breaking whatever he was telling people.
Sucks.
I may have the details of that wrong, so maybe somebody can correct me if I'm not correct.
Maybe somebody can check the life insurance policy.
Yeah, but pacifism is I think this cult. Let me put it this way: I think this culture right now is confusing cowardice for pacifism.
Yeah, that's and that's it. And the only reason I make that I'm saying that out loud is because like at some point I realize like I'm not sure I'm a pacifist as much as I don't want to get in a fight. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can call myself a pacifist. I just don't want to get punched.
Right.
And I think there's a big difference between those two things, and it's easy to get them to confused because my God, what's easier? I mean, and I do think that's another cultural thing is we've really found a way to enshrine or make noble a lot of negative qualities. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is good, but it's like, I don't know. And I think that like when you meet someone who's a warrior and is peaceful, then you're meeting a pacifist. When you meet someone who is defenseless and is peaceful, you're just meeting a survivor. Someone who's just trying to like avoid getting the shit kicked out of them. And that's a dangerous place to be. And I only say that because at some point I recognize that quality in me. I'm trying to work on that, which is why I have now achieved a triple black belt in the quivering palm. I know how to vibrate my palm. I could kill anybody with a vibrating palm, just touch their heart. But I have other levels of the vibrating palm too. I can make it come too.
Oh,
I can make people come with my palm.
Does it have Bluetooth though?
What?
Does it have Bluetooth?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yes. I mean, so what?
Can you connect it? Can you connect it to the smart lights? That's the real question.
Are you really going to out me on the vibrating palm?
Does it connect to? Does it work? But does it work? Does it work with Alexa or Google Home or Apple Home?
I get updates. I don't know
because they don't talk to each other.
I haven't figured out how to connect.
It's like yeah, you can have a vibrating palm, Duncan. Just wait till the firmware doesn't update and you lose the Bluetooth pairing. What good is it going to do you then?
You sound like my teacher. Jason, this has been a delight, and I just feel so lucky to be friends with you. You always enlighten me when we talk, And I so appreciate your time. And I really hope, like, number one, I hope people, like, if I'm like out trying to blow up someone's class, I'm doing it because I've talked to them and known them forever. And also because, and you didn't ask me to do this, so I'm not trying to embarrass you here or something, but like I've met like your students and they are always like so like grateful to have been introduced to you. And I don't know what you're teaching these kids. I don't know, but they do have an aura about them.
I'm teaching them all the secrets of magic and the occult. And if you want those, they're all on offer at www.magic.me, magick.me, the world's greatest school for magic, meditation, and mysticism, where you can learn everything from chaos magic to hermeticism to astral projection and everything in between. Go on, unleash your true self. Do it. What are you waiting for? Magic.me.
Wouldn't recommend. I'm sorry to break up that, but I would not recommend astral projection. It sucks. I hate astral.
Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean it sucks? Tell me about this.
It's terrifying.
What did you do?
What?
What did you do? What happened?
I came out of my body, wanted to go right back in. I'd been
Were you tripping?
listening to these. Nope. I had been listening to these astral projection hypnosis tapes my mom had for like almost a year. Falling to bed, listening to them, I just woke up and the vibrating body thing came out of my body, went up into my fan, turned around and saw my body. And, I'd been reading Journeys Out of the Body. Like, I wanted to do this. And then right when I did, I was like, fuck this.
Did you hear, did you hear anything when you separated?
No. I don't,
yeah. Phenomena?
It was what woke me up. I thought there were people at the door. So it was
why? What did you hear?
Voices at the bottom of the stairs.
Huh.
And then I felt an ominous presence in the room with me.
So it was like a sleep paralysis?
Yeah, that's how I would always do it. It would always start off with sleep paralysis, some vibration, and then boom, you're out. And then you're like, why would I want to leave the safety and protection of my wonderful meat armor?
Do you ever get the thing where that happens and you can see your room in 360 degrees at the same time? It's very odd. It's very strange. It's very strange. It's very strange.
But all the other stuff you mentioned sounds cool. I didn't mean, I'm so sorry to interrupt your plug for your school, but I'm sure you could teach astral projection. I can't do it anymore.
So astral projection, here's a useful thing. So this is actually a major point of confusion for people. Astral projection and out of body are not the same thing. So out of body is what you're describing. It's not something that you should really, you shouldn't really do it. It tends to happen people in things like near-death experiences or car crashes or childhood abuse, unfortunately, or abuse as an adult if it's severe enough. It's like a defense mechanism of the body. It seems to happen during sleep paralysis as well, where you essentially disassociate from the possibility of severe trauma. That's not astral projection. Astral projection is basically what people now call guided visualization.
Oh, interesting.
And it's old yeah, I know, right? It's like I finally figured that out after like 15 years. And it was just like, God, why didn't they just call it? Like, it's just like, oh my God, they had to use this old theosophical language.
Right.
This is the thing. This is the thing with a lot of these texts. It's like they're telling you something true, but they're using cartoon ass language. So you kind of got to be patient with it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the whole thing. I mean, this is what y'all do, and I get it. And I may be pretty dense, but I do recognize that there's a method to it and a reason for some of the way that some of you. I don't mean to like other you, but the way it's presented.
You people.
Like I get it. I do recognize that there's a great deal of logic happening and compassion, real compassion, like a real desire to help. That is pretty awesome. And I won't give away. You guys should take this if you're interested in this stuff, take the class.
Yeah, well, I've got, magic.me is the website where all the courses are, and the best ones are, I have a new one on Introduction to Magic. It's not just me teaching, by the way. I've added new teachers, Lon Milo Duquette.
Really?
You know Lon Duquette?
Shit.
He taught a course, The Magic of Tarot. That's tarot.magic.me. It's an awesome course he went through, and we basically collaborated on it together. And it's a deep dive into the Thoth Tarot. I mean, he goes like electrical engineer level deep on it. It's intense.
Whoa.
And
wait, is this like, so if like people sign up for this, can they like, do you have to enroll and then the class has to be live, or they have access to?
No. I do occasionally do live trainings, but this is all available now. It's all recorded and presented. It's not just recording. There's handouts, there's PDFs, there's workbooks, there's exercises, there's audio, there's video, there's all. It's a whole. I strive to create a whole like multimedia. Use as much modern technology as I can to communicate and to get people. You know, we've done rituals in virtual reality, so people get a sense of how to do it. But yeah, Magic Dummy, and then, but you know. It's like not everyone's going to take a course, and that's fine. But I've got YouTube, Magic Me on YouTube I've been putting a ton of effort into becoming a YouTuber, and also the podcast is Ultra Culture with Jason Louv, which you should definitely come back on, and we should do a video.
Podcasts.
We should do a video episode to
I want to
get
come
that
back
on
to
YouTube.
your house.
Yeah, definitely.
Not to invite myself over, but
no, please, anytime. That's, I mean, what are you gonna like? What's the point of moving to Austin and you're not gonna hang out with your friends who live in Austin?
Yeah, it's so fucked up. We don't hang out more. It's just weird. I don't like it.
It's been a weird time.
That.
It's been crazy busy. It's like things are very confusing. We should definitely hang out more.
Jason, you are a god. Thank you so much, anti-Buddha. Wait, what are you? The dark? Wait, the sleeping Buddha. Wait, you're the.
I'm the guy on the couch.
All hail.
I'm the guy passed out on the couch and no one knows how he got there.
Great napper. Great napper.
I'm just there napping.
We take refuge in the great napper. Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. That was Jason Louv. Everybody, if you want to take any of his classes, go to DuncanTrussell.com. All the links are going to be there. A big thank you to all of our sponsors, and thank you for listening. I love you guys. See you next week.